Quicksilver Lies by Glencook. This is a fan-made experimental work using AI. Chapter 1. There ain't no justice, I guarantee abso-damn-lutely. There I was, comfy as could be, feet on my desk, a pint of Weeder's porter in my hand, Espinosa's latest potboiler in my other hand, and Eleanor reading over my shoulder. She understood Espinosa better than I did, for once the goddamn parrot wasn't squawking. I sucked up that sweet silence more enthusiastically than I did the beer. Some fool went to hammering on my door. His pounding had an arrogant, impatient edge. Meant it would be somebody I didn't want to see. "Dean! See who that is. Tell him to go away. I'm out of town. On a secret mission for the king. Won't be back for years. And I wouldn't buy what he's selling anyway if I was home." Nobody moved. My cook/housekeeper/factotum was the one who was out of town. I was at the mercy of wannabe clients and the goddamned parrot. Dean had gone to Temesvar. One of his herd of homely nieces was going to get married. He wanted to make sure her fool fiancé didn't wake up before it was too late. The pounding continued, bruising my door. I'd just installed it, replacing one broken down by a villain who couldn't take a hint. "Damned insensitive jerk," I muttered. Hollering and threats backed the hammering. The neighbors were going to get upset. Again. Sleepy, puzzled noises came from the small front room between my office and the door. "I'll kill him if he wakes that talking chicken." I glanced at Eleanor. She offered no advice. She just hung there, baffled by Espinosa. Guess I'd better dent ahead before I got to deal with another citizens' committee. Or had to put up a new door. Doors aren't only not cheap, they're hard to come by. I dropped my feet, stretched my 6'2", got going. The goddamn parrot made a noise. I peeked into his room. The little buzzard was only talking in his sleep. Excellent. He was one pretty monster. He had a yellow head, blue neck ruff, red and green body and wings. His tail feathers were long enough I could maybe someday cash in with a band of gnomes who needed decorations for their hats. But a monster he was, for sure. Somewhere, sometime, somebody put a curse on that foul-beaked vulture, so he's got the vocabulary of a stevedore. He lives to be obnoxious. He was a gift from my friend, Morley Dotes. Made me wonder about the nature of friendship. The goddamn parrot B/B/A Mr. Big. Stirred. I got out of there before he took a notion to wake up. "I have a peephole in my front door. I peep," I muttered. "Winger. Wouldn't you know? My luck and water have plenty in common, especially always heading downhill. Winger was a natural disaster looking for a place to happen. A stubborn disaster, too. I knew she'd pound away till hunger got her. She didn't look underfed. She wouldn't worry about what the neighbors thought either. She noticed the opinions of others the way a mastodon noticed undergrowth in the woods. I opened up. Winger moved forward without being invited in. I stayed put and almost got trampled. She is big and beautiful, but her candle doesn't burn too bright.
"Need to talk to you, Garrett. I need some help. Business."
I should have known better. Hell, I did know better. But times were dull. Dean wasn't around to nag me. The dead man had been asleep for weeks. I had nobody but the goddamn parrot for company. All my friends were beset by lady friends, a trial that hadn't befallen me during any recent epoch. "All right. I know. I'm going to be sorry. But, all right. I'll give you a listen. Promising nothing, but..."
"How's about a brew while we're jawing?"
"Winger shy?" "I don't think so." She headed for the kitchen. I took a look around outside before I shut the door. You never knew what might be tagging after Winger. She didn't have sense enough to look back. She survived on luck, not skill.
Holy hooters. Garrett, check them gazombies.
Damn, what I got for not closing the door to the small front room. The street showed me only a clutter of people and animals and dwarves and elves and a squadron of centaur emigrants. The usual. I shut the door. I went to the small front room and closed that door, ignoring outraged allegations of neglect. "Stow it, bird. Unless you want to get neglected right into some rat man's dinner pot." He laughed. He mocked. He was right. I have no use for ratmen, but I wouldn't do that to them. Then he yelled rape. I didn't worry. Winger had heard it before. Help yourself, why don't you? I said when I hit the kitchen, like she hadn't helped herself already. She'd glom the biggest mug in the house, too. She winked.
Here's to you, big guy.
She knew exactly what she was doing, but didn't have the grace to be embarrassed.
You and your sidekick in there.
Yeah? You want a parrot? I drew myself a mug, settled at the kitchen table.
The crow in a clown suit. What would I do with him?
She planted herself opposite me, beyond dunes of dirty dishes. How about get yourself an eye patch, get into the pirate business?
Don't know if I could dance with a peg leg. It ever say, shiver me timbers or arg matey?
What?
What I thought. You're trying to stick me with a substandard bird. That's no sailor bird, Garrett. That critter is pure city, knows more gutter talk than me.
You teach him some sea chanties.
Yo ho ho. Deem finally croak?
She stared at the dishes. He's out of town. Got a niece that's getting married. Looking for a part-time job? Winger had met some of Dean's nieces, all of whom brought new meaning to the word homely. She controlled her astonishment, though, and pretended to miss my hint about the dishes.
I was married once.
Oh, boy. I hoped she didn't get started. She was still married, but didn't let legal trivia encumber her. Don't go misty on me, Winger.
Misty, you shitting me. After that, hell is gonna look good.
Winger is a tad unusual, case you haven't noticed. She is 26, as tall as I am, and built like the proverbial masonry privy, on an epic scale. Also, she has what some guys think is an attitude problem. Just can't figure out how to stay in her place. You want my help, I reminded, just a poke. My keg wasn't bottomless. I smirked. Maybe she was desperate enough to take the goddamn parrot off my hands.
That.
She would get to the point only after she had mooched her fill. That quantity would clue me as to the state of her fortunes. You're looking good, Winger. Even Winger likes to hear that. Must be doing all right? She assumed I meant her outfit. That was new and, as always, remarkable.
Where I work, they want you to dress snappy.
I kept a straight face. Unusual is only the most cautious, gentlest way to characterize Winger's taste. Let's say you couldn't lose her in a crowd. If she went around with a goddamn parrot on her shoulder, nobody would notice the bird. That outfit is pretty timid. When you worked for that fat freak Lubbock.
It's the territory. These guys want you should blend in.
Again, I kept my face straight. Being amused by Winger when Winger isn't amused can be hazardous to your health, especially if you're dim enough to, say, crack wise about her blending in.
Old-timers gone, eh? What about the ugly thing?
She meant my partner, the dead man, so-called because he hasn't run any foot races since somebody stuck a knife in him 400 years ago. Ugly thing is apt. He isn't human. He's a Logyear, which explains why he's still hanging around so long after he was murdered. Logyear are slow and stubborn, especially when it comes to sloughing off the old mortal clay. They're deliberate, he would say. Asleep. Been weeks since he bugged me. I'm in heaven. Winger sneered, flipped blonde hair out of her face.
Likely to wake up?
Maybe if the house catches on fire. Got something to hide? The dead man's big trick is mind-reading.
No more than usual. I was just thinking. It's been a dry spell. Way I hear, weather ain't been so hot for you neither.
That was my pal Winger, so shy and demure. Somehow, with her, the romance and adventure were absent. Thought you had desperate business.
Desperate?
You legged it, tore the door down. You woke up the goddamn parrot with your whoopin' and hollerin'. That about-to-become roasted squab was holding forth up front. I figured you had killer elves slavering on your trail.
I just wish. I told you how my luck's been. I was just trying to get your attention.
She refilled her mug, did mine, headed for my office.
All right, Garrett. Business first.
She paused, listened. T.T. Parrott was on a roll. She shrugged, slipped into my office. I followed quickly. Sometimes things fall into Winger's pockets if you're not there to keep an eye on them. I wriggled into my chair, safe behind my desk. Eleanor guarded my back. Winger scowled at the painting, then eyed my book.
Disappearing. We never heard her before.
It's a real thriller. Espinosa was beyond me, mostly. He tended to make a big deal out of questions that wouldn't have occurred to anybody who worked for a living. I'd gone to visit a lady friend at the Royal Library. The book was all I got. Yeah.
Philosophy is thrilling? Like a hemorrhoid. The man should have got a hobby. Teresa.
Heated. Philosophy. Since when can you read?
You don't need to act so surprised. I've been learning. Got to do something with my ill-gotten gains, don't I? I thought maybe some learning might come in handy someday, but mostly what I've learned is studying don't make you no smarter about people.
I started to agree. I know some pretty dim academics, people who live in another world. Winger cut me off.
Enough chit-chat. Here's the gig. This old broad name of Maggie Jen is maybe gonna come see you. I don't know what's up, but my boss is willing to pay a shitload of money to find out. This Jen crone knows me, so I can't get close to her. What I figured was, why don't I get you to let her hire you, then you let me know what she's up to, and I can take that to my boss.
Vintage Winger. Maggie Jen?
That's the name.
Seems like it ought to ring a bell. Who is she?
You got me. Just some old broad off the hill.
The hill? I leaned back, just a harried man of affairs, taking a moment out to relax with an old friend. I have a case.
What is it this time? A stray lizard?
And she laughed. Her laughter sounded like geese headed north for the winter.